Hi and welcome back. And yes, I have been away for about 4 months, not done any videos at all, just had a lot of personal stuff I needed to wade through and get sorted, but we're at the other end now, so I'm going to leave that alone and we're going to just concentrate on what's going on now. Now the first thing I want to point out is that, if you hadn't noticed, the name of the channel is going to be changed. It's going to be changed to All Scale Diorama Builds, and the simple reason is I just want to try other scale builds. That is it. So that will be happening soon, officially. I just need to check up with YouTube and that to make sure that it's not going to cause any complications. So we'll leave that alone now and we'll get on with the video. Now the video is going to be a build video. The build is going to be of the building that you see in front of you. Now I built this particular one a few years ago. Yes, it was a few years ago. I built this one using the hollow concrete blocks that Diorama Debris released me the mould early, and I actually got the mould. Now when I used it, fantastic mould, don't get me wrong, beautiful blocks. I did suggest to them that they should put some sort of mortar line on it to help build. They didn't take my advice, sadly, and they released it, and you're just getting them blocks without no mortar line. Now this is going to be like a two-part build. Not two-part build as in it's going to be cut in half. It's going to be part where I'll be showing you how to do the build using the moulds that are available, and then there's going to be a few little quirky bits that I actually make and I sell on my eBay. So it's going to be a mixture, because I don't want you to think that I'm just trying to push my stuff and leave you sort of like, oh, I'm going to have to buy that. A lot of the build is going to be using what moulds you can get from Diorama Debris, but there's going to be a few little bits and pieces that you can't get from Diorama Debris, you can only get from me on my eBay, but that will become apparent as we go through. So enough of the jabber, let's just get on and start building. So to start off with, I'm going to build this back wall first. Now this is 11.5 courses long and it's 11 courses high. Now this is my little setup for building these walls, because I'm going to build my walls flat. I ain't going to do it on top of each other. Now all I've got is a offcut of laminate flooring. I've used the machine edged to put my square against, so we're going to get a nice square. I've just taped that down. Now normally I put cling film over it, and I did put cling film over it, but when I started to film, the glare from the cling film was too much, so this time I'm going to do it without the cling film. But if you're doing it yourself, put some cling film on. It makes it a lot easier to get your parts off when they're dry. That's about it. Oh, tool wise, we've got PVA. This is builder's PVA, not the white glue. I always suggest that you get the builder's PVA. It's a lot stronger and it does the job a lot better. A sanding sheet, brush to put the glue on with, my little saw and a scalpel. That's it. So that's my little setup. Now we're going to have a little look at the blocks. Now, close look at the blocks. This one, this side here, that's the Diorama Debris one, and this is the one that I've gone ahead and put a mortar joint at the bottom and on one end. Now it's still the hollow concrete block, as you can see, but if we just turn it over, get my big hands in there, you can see the mortar joint. So now we can just glue on top of each other. So we'll go back down to the bench now. to start off with, we'll have a quick look at the diorama debris blocks. Now, like I say, they're a great block. There's nothing wrong with them except for they haven't got the mortar joint in. Now, there's a few ways that you can actually get your mortar joint. You can firstly get some very thin balsa wood, which you can glue on each course, which will give you your mortar joint. But remembering that you're going to have to put the perks in as well, so the gap between the actual blocks. So you're going to need to cut small bits and glue them in individually, and it is time consuming, but you do get a good result. The second option is you can just go and get yourself some styrene, but that option you've got to go with super glue to get the styrene to stick, and you've got the same problem. You've got to cut down small bits to put in between the blocks. The final option is just get some card from a cereal box or anything like that. This is about 0.7, and you can do exactly the same with that. Cut it down to strips, glue it, and do the same between the blocks. The other two, if you've got to go out and buy it, it's putting extra expense on it. The cardboard one would be the better option, keeping your costs down. So that's a quick look at the ordinary blocks. Now we're going to move on to the ones that I've tweaked. Now these little blocks that I've done a lot of fettling on, as you can see, the mortar strip is set back from the actual side, from the actual face of the actual block. This is so when the wall's built, we can actually get it grouted up. We will cover that when we get to it, but this is going to be very simple. All we do is the face edge we put towards this end, and it's a matter of then of just getting your blocks and then running through with a little bit of glue on the end and actually sticking them together like so. We'll do a few. It's very difficult because I've got the camera right underneath my nose, so we just keep going on like so. Now I've got to come down 11 and a half blocks, but it won't work out that. It'll only work out at 11 because the mortar joint will give me the extra half a block by the time I get to the end. Now going upwards, I want to do this so it's actually toothed. So what I'm actually going to do is get just a standard block and put in that end, and then we're going to start gluing off of that one. So all I'm doing there is just put a bit of glue at the bottom, and then we just push that down on top there, and leaving that half block not glued in, because when I pick it up I can make the other side and we can just slot them together to make our corner, and it will save a lot of time and a lot of aggravation. So I'm going to run along now with these, and that's going to be a bit of glue at the end along the bottom, and I'm going to use my square just to bring down and just to make sure that they're all nice and tight. That one is quite loose, that's the way we want it. So when the next one goes on the top, which I'll do, is we just want to glue half of that like so. It would be better to do it in lines as you're going along, because it's quite I'm gluing every side now. There we go. say, I'm just using my square just to make sure they're all nice and straight and level. So I'm going to continue up. I'll get all this wall built and then I shall come back to you. Now the back section I've completed, as you can see, and I'm quite happy with that. As you can see, it's nice and straight, and the great thing about it, it's double-sided. Now there's another two pieces to go to this. We've got one piece to go here and another piece to make the actual door opening. Now I've already made them because there's no point in me showing you how to make these pieces, because they just stack on top of each other. The only difference is that we started, instead of a full block, I started with a half, and that is to give me that so I can actually fix it together. We got it right there. We're not even got the right end, I don't think. No. So we can actually fix it together like so to actually make our corner. Now I've already cut a small base out, which I will bring in now. All it is a little piece of MDF. This is a bit of the laminate flooring, and what I've done, I've just sanded and scored the top surface because I do want to put some concrete in the bottom here, should I say. So what's going to happen is that is going to go onto that little base like so to give us our corner. I've got the other piece that I've made, and that's just going to sit like that to give us that room. Now you may notice as well, I've only gone up 9 courses instead of 10. This is because I want to put a lintel across there, and the lintel should take up most of the blocks, and then we can just put the individual blocks in. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to get this glued to this board, and when that's dry and that, I'll come back and we'll get on with the lintels. I've got my sides all glued down, all nice and dry. Now I'll run through with you what, well, for the sizes actually, it's 11 blocks long, 10 blocks high. This far corner, this is only just 3 blocks, but we started, instead of a full block, we started with a half block to give us the teeth, so we can actually tie that in to make a corner. Like I say, this is only 3 blocks wide, and we went up 9 courses. We went up 9 courses for the simple reason is so we can actually get a lintel on. Now the width of the door, I just use 4 blocks as my gauge for the width of the door. And this far end, well, this is just another section, but it's just 2 blocks, then a block and 2 half blocks. Very, very simple to put together and glue. Everything's turned out well. I'm quite happy with this. So the next step is we're going to need lintels. So we'll take a look at the mould from Diorama Debris. Quick look at this little mould from Diorama Debris. Now I'm going to read this off because I can't remember everything. It's 1/35 scale. It's concrete lintels and sills for a 7mm wall. The mould number is 1350021. Now it casts off 6 lintels or sills, whichever way you want to say it. It casts off 2 100mm long at 7mm by 3.5. Then it casts another 2 off 100mm long, 7mm, height 4.5. And this is where it gets a bit strange because it says it's for a 7mm one, but then you cast off one 100mm by 9mm by 4.5, which is that big one there, and then you cast a single one off 100mm by 9mm by 2mm, which is that one there. So you've got quite a few different sizes there. I've used this mould for a long time, and I've used it in a lot of my builds because it's such a useful little mould. Loads of bits and pieces I've used, like making piers, floors, beams on floors, all sort of stuff like that. And this mould will come into its own on the next step when we actually do a block and beam floor, but we'll get to that in a minute. But for the moment, that's our lintels. That's where you get them from. Now I'm going to have to keep saying this as we go through. If you've already got the mould, great, you can build away. If you want it, I'll put a link up. Now if you don't want to do any of the other ones, they are available on my eBay. Quick and easy as that. So let's get across and we'll put some lintels on. Now to start with, I'm going to be using some of the 9mm by 2mm, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these as a frame to go all the way around the inside. So I'm going to glue one piece that side, one piece this side, and then one piece over the top, but I'm going to make sure it sits higher, it sits on top of the two. The simple reason is we need then to put a lintel on top of that. So what we're actually creating there is door liner. Now by doing that, if I move that along, you can see that's the same height as the blocks. So that will give us our height all the way around. And then it's just a case of filling these in. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut these two pieces here and this top piece, get them glued in, and then I'll come back to you so you can take a look. Now I've got these all glued in. Now these pieces were 9mm, so what I've done, I've allowed a little bit to hang over the front, so when we come to render it will finish off nice and flush. Now the top piece I've set over half a block, and now what we're going to do is get our, I think it's 4.5 piece. Now I'm going to cut that the same length as that top part, so when we actually come to put our blocks in, when I get it round the right way, that would just be enough to allow a brick joint over the top of the lintel. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to cut that, get that glued on, and get these individual blocks just glued on either end, and then when I come back we'll get on with doing a block and beam floor. So there you go, pieces put in the side, lintel put on, all up to height. If I put a piece across the top there, you can just see there's a little gap which will disappear as really as a mortar joint. So that's all done. Now we're going to move on and we're going to do some block and beam floor. Now block and beam, what is it? Exactly what it says. It is a beam and blocks. The blocks are the infill and the beams are the support. Exactly what you can actually see on your screen now. What we've got is a concrete support beam, then they're infilled with hollow concrete blocks, solid blocks, depending on what the engineers and the architects say they must have for that particular build. Now you can Google this, just Google block and beam. There's hundreds of photographs of all different types, styles, all engineered for different things. But what I'm going to do is show you a way of using the hollow concrete blocks and the lintels and sill molds to actually create this. So we'll go back to the bench and I'll run you through it. So if you've already got the lintel mould and also you've got the hollow concrete block mould, you've got everything you need there to actually make the block and beam floor. Now within that mould are the 3.5 concrete lintels. Now it's very simple. If you lay one of those down on your little jig and get your hollow concrete blocks, the concrete blocks are 7mm, so are the lintels, and all you need to do is because I'm not actually going to glue any of this together, because I'm going to be using something slightly different for this build. But I thought I'd run through this with you to start off with. So just keep placing your concrete blocks, gluing them together all the way down. Once you get down to the end, then you just simply glue another beam and carry on the process again, is by putting your concrete blocks, gluing them all the way down like so, and then gluing another concrete beam. Now you just keep going to what size you require, and it's as straightforward as that. Once it's dried, you can pick that up all in one section, and then you can glue it directly to your well, top of your walls. Very simple, very straightforward. So if you've got them already, you can do that without having to mess about too much. Now, a lot of people out there haven't got that mould, haven't got this, haven't got that, and this is part of the reason why I'm doing this video, is because I've already made up some like T-beams, which, as normal, they will be on eBay. You can be able to buy these, and it's simply a little T-beam like this. It's got a lip at the bottom which the blocks actually sit on. I've actually made them with a piece actually cut out, so they can actually be joined together to be made longer if required, but they are pretty long. You get 3 long ones and 3 short ones. Now I'm going to set up, and then when I come back we'll get started and get this one built. So I have my little beams. All we're going to do is put one up against my square. I'm going to leave the cutout on just in case I need to extend it. That's the only thing. I've got a bit of 0.75 styrene. Now this is just as a support, because it's a T-beam. We've got that little bit at the bottom. This is just to stop that from just dropping down, so we can glue it. And that's all we're going to do along here. Is I should start the first one, and it's always the starting that's the most difficult. So what I'm going to actually do is start this far end, which is natural. Just glue that first one in like so, and then I shall just continue on. Now I'm not going to bore the living daylights out of you by you watching me glue blocks together. So like I say, it's just a matter of getting your blocks in all the way along. I'm going to continue on. The first row is always going to be the most difficult, because like everything else it's all moving around, but I shall get the first one done, and before I start the second one I will come back to you. Now our first row has been glued in, and all we need to do now is run a bit of glue along the edge of one of these beams like so, and we just slide that under like that. Pull the plastic strip out, and now we move on to the next row, and we do exactly the same again. Now I'm going to carry on. I shall do a few. I'll keep popping back to you so you can see progress. Now I've been laying blocks for roughly half an hour, so I haven't done bad in half an hour. I've done 6 lines, and all I keep doing now is just laying the base on, and just keep working down, because I don't want to put too many blocks out, because that's just going to be a waste, because we're going to break most of them off. So I'm going to carry on, and I will be back with you when I've finished. The floor is complete. It's had overnight to dry. As you can see, it's all in one nice piece. We'll turn it over. Now before we take the floor and glue it to the bottom half, I really need to change directions for a few minutes. If I bring the base back in, and then we're a bit close with the camera, so I'll pull you back to there. Now if I put the floor on now, if we do it, we just place it on, it's going to make life a little bit difficult to actually get this inside bit done. So what I want to do now is actually get this grouted up. So first things first, what I'm going to use is some PVA that I really have watered down, it literally down to nothing, and all we're going to do, we're going to give this a coat of PVA all the way over. You don't want to sit there and watch me do that, so I shall be back in a second. Now I've given everything a coat of PVA, and you may have noticed I've actually used some of my 3.5mm beams and put along this edge and along the door. This is so I can actually mix some plaster up while I'm here, and we can actually make a concrete floor. You don't have to use them bits, you can just use bits of plastic and just make some shuttering up just to hold the plaster in while it dries. So first things first, what I'm going to do, we're going to grout this up. Now I've mixed up straightforward Decorators Filler, and I've just put a little tiny bit of black paint just to bring it down to grey, and I've mixed it up to sort of like a paintable paste, should I say. Yes, paintable paste. And all we're going to do, I'll turn that on its side like so. All we're going to do is literally just paste over, or paint over should I say, all the joints. So we just go all over. Like so. I'm not going to bore you to tears and let you watch me do this, but you get the idea. Now I'll come back to you when I've finished. So I've pasted it all over. I've got just a little bit of styrene which I'm going to use to scrape over the top and take any of the excess off. We will clean it back a little bit better, but for the moment I want the actual stuff in the joints to actually dry off a little bit so we can just do a little bit of pointing. So I'm just going to clean off this bit. I could do with cutting down a little bit, but there you go. Sorry about that. So we'll just clean the rough off. Now I'm going to leave that to just go off a little bit, and then we'll go on and we'll just get it pointed up and make it look like blockwork. I've given it a little bit of time to dry off. Now I'm not going to do anything else really to it. Scraping it off, leaving it like that, it's going to lighten the blocks. I mean, you can, if you want, get one of them wax modelling tools and you can make a few indents here and there just to make it look a bit rougher, because block work is never finished off well, unless it's going to be a face finish, which most of these places are not. So I'm going to leave it like that, and what I'm going to do now is I'll get some more stuff mixed up and we'll get the floor put in. So swiftly moving on, I've mixed up a bit more filler with a little bit of black paint just to tone it down a little bit, and the floor we are just simply going to fill it, level it off best way we can, so, and then I will come back to it when it's gone off a little bit so we can actually maybe try and get a tamp effect on it. So I'm going to carry on with that and I shall be back with you shortly. Now unfortunately I didn't get a chance to record finishing off this floor because I got called away, but we will get another opportunity because there is the second floor, well sorry, the first floor to actually concrete as well. Now what I'd like to do now is move on and get some more walls built, because all we've got to do now is actually glue the floor down. Sorry, that's a bit close, but we've got to glue the floor down. But I want this to dry out properly first, so I'm going to put that to one side, and I'm going to get on and build some walls to go on the top here. Now I was only going to do the ground floor and the first floor, but I've decided now to go, we're going to do a third floor, because I've got some screen blocks that I want to use. So I'll get set up and we'll get started on these next set of walls. So I've made a start on laying my blocks for the walls for the next lift. Now I've gone 11 blocks long, which is what we had at the bottom, and I've gone 3 courses so far high. Now I've started to actually rack it back, because this is going to be within the damaged area and there's no point of building out too much. So I've got my 3 courses, and on this third course I want to put some windows in. Now this is one of my things which I'm going to try out, and that's going to be these, once I get the glare off it, there we go, these screen blocks. Now I remember my father having a mould to make these, but they do use them a lot in the Middle East. So once I find a pair of scissors, there we go. Get them out of the packet. Okay, now I want to use them. They come in strips of 10. I'm going to bring my hand down a little bit. There we go. Strips of 10. So I'm going to use them as a just as a complete, like a window. That's it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to roughly space these out there and there, and then we need to start with a half. So what I'm going to do now is glue a half in, a full block, another half, then the window, and then this side we're going to have to go a 3/4. No, we're not. We're going to have to go another half, aren't we? Yes. There we go. So we go another half. That one's no good. That's got an air bubble in it. Find another one. That's a decent one. So we'll go another half that side. Then a 3/4. So I've got to sit and cut a load of 3/4. Then a full one. Then another full one. Would that be about right? Yeah, that looks about right to me. Then from this side we're going to need another 3/4, so I'll cut a lot of 3/4. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I shall build these piers up to the top of these. When I've reached the top, I shall come back to you, because I'm going to have to make a decision if I'm going to put a lintel in over the top there or not. Right, I've come to the top of the windows and I have made a decision about what I'm going to be doing. Is I'm not going to be using a lintel. Instead I'm going straight across with a course of blocks. This gives me 10 courses altogether, the same as what we've got at the bottom, so it's going to keep everything balanced out. Now I'm going to build another one of these, except for with one window in. I don't need to run all the way through that because we've already been through constructing them. And as well as what I'm going to make as well is another floor section, which again I don't have to go through because we've already been through it. So I'm going to get on and get them bits finished. Then when we come back, we'll start getting the first floor assembled. Somewhere along the line, I've actually lost a clip. This is from the last clip to the next clip that you're going to see after this one, and it makes the two bits jump too much. So I'm putting this clip in as an explanation of what's going on. Now, when I constructed the floor, I never turned this end block upwards, allowing to see the holes, because that then would have blocked the end of the floor off. So what we've had was holes all the way around, which was no good. So to remedy this, what I did, I used some lintels and I glued them all the way around the outside, and that created my lip, and also it cloaked over the holes in the hollow concrete blocks. Now everything is dried, so we can do a bit of dry assembly, should I say. Now this is the first floor, all nice and dry. Now the little incident with the blocks, as you can see, them lintels covered that over really nicely, and I quite like this little bit of a overhang on the building, which I probably will glue it down in that position. But first things first, what I would like to do now is give this a coat of very thin PVA, and I would like to get the whole lot grouted up before I go any further. So I'm going to get on with that, and then I'll come back to you and we can get on and get some of these floors put down. So all the grouting's been done right the way round, so that's all done and waiting for render or whatever I decide to do as we go through. Jumping back, I want to get onto this floor. I want to get the screed on it. Now I'm going to just mix some plaster up like I did for the downstairs floor. I'm not going to be tamping it, I'm going to be just making it as smooth as I can for a floor. So I will get that, mix that up. What did I use last time? I just used plaster and a little bit of black paint just to bring the colour down to a greyish colour. I'll get that all skimmed over. I think it's going to be about a mil, not even that I don't think, all over that floor. I will leave it to dry for I don't know, about half an hour, and then I'll get my scalpel and I should try and cut a line, because I want the floor to be visible so you can actually see the beams, the blocks, and then you can actually see the floor screed. That's just me, you know. I mean, if you're doing it, you do it whichever way you want, but I just like to see individual things that just gives it that little bit more definition. So I'm going to crack on with that, and I will be back with you very shortly. Now I've done a little bit of screeding on the floor, quite happy with it. There is a little bit of a low spot which I will come across a bit later on and level that out to match up the rest. Looks okay, I'm quite happy with that. I never cut it out with the scalpel, I just put the plaster down and just used my little trowel and just made an edge. It's come out okay, I'm quite happy. Now what I want to do next is actually get some plaster sheets on there. Now these are the plaster sheets, extremely thin. Now this is a mould you can get from Diorama Debris. They're 8 foot by 4 foot. Well, this particular one is not 8 foot by 4 foot. It's actually in 1/35 scale. It's 35 millimeters wide, 70 mil high, and it's a thickness of 0.75. So they're quite thin, they're quite delicate, but it's an extremely good little mould. If you want the mould number is 1350017, and you can get that from Diorama Debris. Now for the people that haven't got the mould, we haven't used them, they're very, very easy to use. All we're going to do is go all the way around and just glue them on, like so. Very easy. All you need to do is get your PVA glue. I shall do one, because what I do is I do blobs. The simple reason is I do blobs is that when it sticks and dries, if you need to break the plaster, it cracks it and makes it look more realistic than if you glue it all over. And it's a simple job. I shall go over the doors, the windows, the lot. I'm just going to glue over the top like so. We've got the first one on, and I will just keep going around like this until I get them all on, and then when they're dry I will cut out the windows just with a scalpel. It's very, very easy. I'm just going to keep going on like that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do all the inside all the way around, use broken bits here and full sheets. When I've got it all glued on, I shall come back to you and I will show you just how easy it is to actually cut out the windows. So this is going to be my final take, because I'm actually running out of windows to show you, because it's very difficult to show how well, it's very easy actually. Get your scalpel and just run down the inside until you actually cut it out. It's as simple as that, like so. And you'll find the bits will just fall out. That bit's going to break. No, it has, it's come out alright. There we go. So it's just as easy as that. You just run around with your scalpel. The reasons I do it this way is when you've got one of these little flat sheets and you try and score it, and if it's on a flat surface, a little tiny bit of dust underneath it and it will just shatter. So I found it's less frustrating just to stick them on whole, turn it around, to stick them on whole, then cut the windows out afterwards. It's a lot easier. So I'm going to finish these windows off, and also I'm going to put in the little screens as well. Nothing special, we're just going to be fettling around the outside, fitting them in and gluing them. I will be gluing them so they're set back from the front, because I want to put a bit of render around here and just make them a bit more of a detail. So I'll get on now with that, get the rest of the windows cut out. Well, not many windows to cut out now. Get the screens in. When I come back, we'll get on and we'll get some rendering done. Okay, I've got the rest of the plasterboard finished off. I've got the windows glued in. The bits I cut out the actual windows I've just glued along the top. Now the next step is to actually get some plaster on. Now I've experimented quite a lot with this plasterboard sheeting, how to get rid of these joints. I've tried just trying to fill, sand. It always ends up the same. It's a long drawn out process. So my way is mix some filler up so it's paintable, and all we do is we simply paint the whole area. Oh, knocking the camera there. Paint the whole area with the Decorators Filler, not being too careful because we're going to flatten it off. So we cover all the joints, and if you like that type of plastering you can actually leave it like that, but we will flatten it off with a little floating tool that I've made, should I say. So what I'm going to do now is I should carry on and get this all covered, and then I'll come back to you. So I've got that coated, and as you paint it on, it starts to dry. So all I'm doing is just with my paintbrush, just making sure it's almost level, not fantastic. And then we turn to, all this is a little float, and it's just made from a couple of bits of balsa wood. And what I do is, when it's starting to dry like this, is just to use this, I'll hold it there, just to flatten off the walls. Now I normally like to have this I'm knocking the camera again because I'm trying to, I normally like to have this in my hands and do it, but you can then flatten off all the walls, and you can leave them like with small holes in. It's up to you, it's how you want your sort of render work to finish off. Now I'm going to carry on with that, but I'm going to do it off camera because I need to turn that so it's actually in my hands, virtually on my chest should I say. So I should do that and I should be back in a second. Now I've gone over that bit. I've not left it ultra smooth because I don't really want it ultra smooth, but the great thing about it is if you do want it ultra smooth, you can come back when it's dry with a piece of sandpaper, very fine sandpaper, and you can really make it nice and smooth. So I'm quite happy with that. I might even just hit it with a bit of sandpaper here and there just to finish it off, but I'm quite happy with that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get the other wall done, get that finished off, and then we'll move around to the front. Inside's done. I've just got a little bit of well, messing about, just putting a bit around the actual windows and just finishing them off, but I will come back to that because at the moment I'm going to leave this all to dry. While this is drying, I'm going to take that piece away, and what I'm going to do now is do exactly the same. Is I'm going to paint this over with filler, and then what I'm going to do is use that little tool just to finish it off. So I'll get on with that and I shall be back in a minute. It's all had a coat of plaster, and yes, it does look a bit rough. Now this is how I want it because I'm going to leave this to dry, and then I'm going to use my little float and I'm going to go around in circles, and it's going to take all the highs off, but it's going to leave them low parts, and it's just going to give that rough effect but not too rough. So I'm going to leave this for a good 15 minutes, really let it go off, and then I'll get started and just, like I say, just go around in small circles, and it will take all the highs off and it will flatten it back down again. So there you go, that's just gone round in very small circles. It's taken all the highs off and just left all them little indents, which is what render really looks like, and I'm quite happy with that. I'll probably just leave it to go off a little bit more, and then I'll come back with a little bit of water, put a little bit of water on it, and do exactly the same thing just to finish it off and polish it up and make it look like they've tried to make a decent job of it. So I'm going to leave that to dry. This is a bit I'm going to be jumping forward quite a bit. Now if we put on our first floor, now that's got to be rendered up no different to the bottom, and there's no point of me showing you that because we've already done it. What I want to do is jump straight now on to actually the second floor. Now the simple reason is being that I need to shape this bottom half up, and I still need to build a small wall about 3 courses, which there's no point in me running through with you again because we've already done it. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be building 3 courses of blocks all the way through, probably be putting some of the screen blocks in, dot them around, getting the floor cemented in at the back here. Once I've done that, then I'll come back to you and we'll start getting this inside bit. We'll probably have to build it up a little bit, build this side up, and just to make it look right as it's been hit by a rocket or whatever. So I'm going to get on with that. I'll get that done and then I'll be back. Now I've gone up 4 courses instead of 3. 3 courses looked a little bit low. I put the extra 4th course on and it looks right to me now. I haven't put no screed blocks in. Yet again, they didn't look right. So that's what we've ended up with, is just a solid wall all the way around. So what I'm going to do is render this up and just oval the top and down the other side. The floor's been screeded up, yes, and I did go down and put that little bit in there, floated that off. I'm happy with that. So moving round to the front, now the top has been, well, done. It's not actually finished, but we've done it. Now what I'll concentrate on is making this more of a circle. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to start building these blocks up on top, just stacking them up, gluing them in, and just trying to get this shaped in. So I've shaped up the area that I want as damaged area, as you can see. That's all good, quite happy with that. A quick look from the back side. Now what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to get it all plastered, the whole lot. It's quite a bit to be plastered. No point in me showing you what I'm doing because we've already run through it on the bottom section, so I'm going to be doing exactly the same. The only difference is I will be doing a few little cheats because I still have some of these plaster sheets, so I'm probably going to cover some of the bigger areas, and then I'm just going to plaster over the whole lot. So I'm going to get that done, so when we come back all this will be completed, and then we can move on to doing some damage. All the plaster's on and it's dry, and I'm quite happy with it. As you can see, we'll go all the way around. I've plastered this top section as well, brought that in, just rounded the edges off roughly, and we've got to move on. And I've already started, I don't know if you can see, but I will point it out, I've started to put some little bits of rebar in the ends of the beams. Now all I'm doing is just drilling 2 little holes at 0.6, and my rebar, I bet my camera won't focus on it, but all it is some 2 pieces of 0.3 over twisted on an electric drill, well, cordless drill should I say, and I'm just using that as my rebar, which I'm going to be gluing into all of those. Now we're going to move on because I can only do this in one take, and that's going to be, we're going to soften this area, this damaged area up. We're going to break off some of these blocks, and we're going to put a hole straight through the side there. Now I can only do this in one take, so what we're going to do is soften up around this area. Now I've got a collection of pliers, and you'll have to bear with me because I'm doing this at arm's length with a camera right under my nose. And what we're going to do is literally break off these corners like so, because they it wouldn't be leaving blocks left like that, because these would just literally crumble like they are now. So I'm just going to go all the way around. That's a tough one, and just shape it up, and I'm just trying to get it into the right position now so you can see what I'm doing. Here we go. So it's a bit smoother, so we're going to leave that, but you get the general idea. I'm just going to clean this off because, like I say, I'm doing this all in one take. Now we'll bring the base in. I'm going to put a hole through the centre there. I'm going to cheat start off with. I've got my drill and I'm going to drill a hole. That's what I do. And then what I'm going to do is somehow try and get my pliers in there, because it's going to be difficult, and start breaking this on the inside. And like I say, I've got the camera right underneath my nose and it's very difficult to move it around, but I just wanted to, so you could get the basic idea. Big pliers. So you just keep working around with your pliers until you get the effect you want. Now I'm going to be doing a little bit more work on that, but I'm going to need to get it closer to me. It's a bit too far away for me to actually do what I want to do, but it's just a matter of chewing away and making that look like it's been an explosion, or a rocket should I say, or something like that. And we'll just keep going, taking bits off, using the scalpel as well, and removing the plaster so you get back down to the blocks again, and basically just shaping it up and forming cracks, as easy as that. Now I'm going to carry on with that off camera, and when I've finished it I will come back to you. So the build is complete. I've finished softening this hole up, well, the damaged area should I say. I've also done a bit more work on the hole in the wall. There's still room to do more. I've gone as far as I think I should go. So that bit's all been sorted out, and going round to the back, I've done it, let's put it that way so you can see. I've done all the rebar all the way through. That's all done and finished with, and it's now all ready for weathering. But as you know, I'm not going to do no weathering on it because this is going on to eBay. What I should do now is I'll bring the earlier one in, just so you can have a look at that, because that will probably give you some ideas if you're not using the screens and other bits and pieces. Okay, we'll look at this section by section. Now this is the little diorama I first built a long time ago, and which the one we just built is based on. As you can see, the far wall, I've done it, virtually done it all the same, except for moved the damaged area up a floor. Now it's still got the hole in the wall. I used just the plasterboard sheeting, and another thing, I used the hollow concrete blocks, but I didn't put no mortar in between, no mortar line. I just stacked them on top of each other, and it did come out reasonably well. Other little things that I did, I made these sort of safety baskets. Also I used quite a bit of the rebar, put it through different bits and pieces. The window frames were actually made from the fast food foil dishes. I just folded it over a piece of styrene just to make my frames up and glued it in place. Outside cable, which is snapped. All little things like this. Now I'm going to put you on pause and move this round. This is the far side. Now on this side I actually scratch built a little air conditioning unit. Now you can actually get them from, I think it's Ming. They do a fantastic little photo edge air conditioning unit, which if I build again I probably would just buy one of them, but it did take quite a bit of time to scratch build that. The doors and that, they were just all made from the foil again, and just weathered. Exactly the same as the frames, and I've done exactly the same as what I've done the other side. I've used the plasterboard sheeting, which to me it doesn't look too bad, but there's always room for improvement. Now actually looking inside, as you can see, the blocks have just been stacked on top of each other, and it does look pretty good. I've also used the beams with the rebar in, and I've also used the plaster sheeting to actually do the floor. It turned out pretty well, and I'm quite happy with it. And I think that about wraps it up for this video. Now my next build video is going to be a church, which I did say I would be doing, and I've had a few complaints because I've not done it, but that will be my next full build video. There will be a couple of other small videos in between. I'm going to do one for people who suffer with the problem of air trapping in their moulds, just a few tips and ideas how they can prevent it. Now that is it. I'm going to wrap this video up, and I'm going to say thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully we will see you on the next video. until then.